Welcome to Thursday Thoughts, your weekly dose of real, honest conversation on all things personal growth. These are the chats Lucy and I love having every week over on Instagram. They're unfiltered, unedited, and always rooted in practical tools and a dose of inspiration. Let's dive in. So this morning we are on request of one of our lovely listeners. We'd get a request that we talk a little bit about meditation and how we got into it, and kind of like a beginner's guide to meditation. So, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I love this conversation, and but it's because from my own experience of meditating over the last several years, I mean, there is no doubt, it's not just me saying it, there is so much scientific evidence out there to show that meditation is so incredibly beneficial. And I think that what we sometimes do is we overcomplicate it and we think, oh, I don't know, how do I do it? How long do I do it? And we just need to completely simplify it. It doesn't have to be hard. And it doesn't have to be, it might be hard initially, but it doesn't have to be complicated. And one thing I will say about meditation in my own experience is that if you are consistent with it, and if you push through the discomfort and the sitting there going, what the fuck am I doing? This is just ridiculous. It's not doing anything. But if you push through that, you can get to a point where it feels so damn good. And these days, like, oh my God, I mean, I wish I meditated for an hour every day. I do not. But when I have time, I try and meditate I can meditate for up to an hour and it goes like that. It is absolutely incredible. And funny, do you know what? It's so weird because considering that you and I never normally know what we're going to talk about, and we knew about this a couple of weeks ago because we had this request to talk about it. What's so weird is that I switched on Mel Robbins' podcast this morning, as I do every Monday morning, because one of her episodes comes out on Monday, and she was interviewing somebody called Dr. Amishi Jha, and lo and behold, they were talking about freaking beginner's guide to meditation. I was like, I'm always one step ahead of Mel Robbins. Not
Love it.
But basically it was just so weird. I just thought, my God, this is so strange. It's a sign from the universe. and what Amishi Jha talks about is something that I'd heard probably from her a couple of years ago, which is that the shortest time that we want to meditate is 12 minutes. Studies show that the benefits start from 12 minutes and above, and it's better to do it for longer than that. But if you're going, oh, I don't have time, you do have time, because how much time do you spend on social media? But if you think you don't have time, we can all find 12 minutes in the day to do something that is so good for us. And I would suggest, in terms of like beginner's guide to meditation, what I do, I have a morning routine club called Cockadoodaloo, lucymegson.com/cock, by the way, for anyone who wants to join. And we meditate every single morning. It's just a half-hour session. And we start with a little bit of breath work, and then we move into a meditation. And what I get people to do always is to focus on the breath, because part of the practice of meditation, I think a lot of people misunderstand and think that you have to clear your mind so that you're no longer thinking, your mind is empty. Well, that's a load of bollocks, because that's impossible. Maybe the Dalai Lama can do that, or monks, or I don't know, but I certainly can't. The truth is that we have thoughts coming into our mind the whole time. But the practice of meditation is to notice when your thoughts are taking you away from the moment and bringing your attention back to the breath. So if somebody is going, I have no idea what to do, oh shit, I want to start meditating, but I just don't know how to do it, I would literally suggest all you need to do is sit down somewhere quiet. You can lie down if you want. It's probably better to sit cross-legged, sit on a chair, doesn't matter. But sit down with your spine upright so that you're kind of alert but relaxed. Close your eyes and just focus on your breath. And just, even if you initially just do it for 3 minutes or 5 minutes, the point of it is to not clear our mind, but again, it's to notice when our mind is pulling us out of the present moment and gently pull your attention back to your breath. And you can literally just be like focusing on, the air going in through your nose and out through your mouth, or whatever it is. But the reason, if anyone's thinking, well, why the fuck would I do this? Because one of the main ways that meditation has helped me is to be so much more mindful and in control of my responses to life, to people, to things. Because when you learn to sit in meditation regularly, and it doesn't have to be every day, by the way, I don't do it every day. I would say that I do it 5 times a week on average. But when you get used to becoming aware of what your mind is doing, but without actually attaching to it. So when you're sitting in meditation, as I say, you're noticing. The idea is to notice what your thoughts are doing, but find that sort of separation. So rather than being in your thoughts, you are observing your thoughts. You are watching your thoughts without judgment, just with curiosity. And what that does is, when you start getting really good at doing that in meditation, what happens is that you then transfer that skill into your life, and you just become so much more aware of what your mind is doing, and you become much better able to, during your sort of daily life, you become so much more able to respond to things rather than react, because you're able to, you just start noticing more what is happening in your mind. And when you notice more what is happening in your mind, then you have more control over how you're responding to things. So I always use the example of like standing in a queue or being stuck in a traffic jam. When you don't meditate, when you have no awareness of your thoughts, when you're not at all mindful of what's going on in your mind, the likelihood is that, you're going to be in a traffic jam, for example, and you might just be like, oh, for fuck's sake, this is so annoying, I'm going to be late. Or you're in a queue and you're like getting really wound up because you're in this queue and you're going to be late, whatever. What meditation does, it just allows you to notice, oh, I'm getting annoyed. I can see what's happening. I'm getting annoyed. And when you recognize that, it means that you're then able to not get annoyed, and you're allowed, you're better able to control your thoughts and control your responses. And for me, as someone who has always been very reactive as a human, I'm a pretty passionate person. I can get really, wound up about things. I can get really upset about things, more than I perhaps should. And what meditation has allowed me to do is just to become a much calmer and less reactive person. That doesn't mean that I don't react. I still do. But what it means is that I will notice the ways that I'm behaving, and I'll notice that so much more. And just by noticing, it means that I can choose to change the way that I subsequently respond. So for me, that is really what meditation is about. And again, it doesn't need to be for long. And there are lots of different ways of doing it. I often use a guided meditation. For example, this morning I did like a 12-minute guided meditation, or maybe it was about 15 minutes. And by the way, I have a free guided gratitude meditation. DM me if you want it, I can send it to you. So if you find it easier to do like a guided meditation, that's great. There are so many, you can use Insight Timer or Calm or YouTube, where there are a million guided meditations out there that you can use. Or if you want, you can just put some music on, some kind of, chilled music, preferably without lyrics. Listen to that while you're doing it. Or you can just try and sit there in silence. But it's so worth it. And the thing about it is that, like anything, we do not expect a fucking 6-pack after a week of going to the gym. We might expect a 6-pack maybe after a year, or 6 months. I don't know. I've never had a 6-pack. But do you know what I mean? And it's the same with meditation. You cannot expect to get the benefits of meditation for just doing it for 2 weeks and then go, oh no, it's not working, which is what I used to do, by the way, when I first started. When I first started meditation, I kept sort of stopping and starting, and this isn't working. Well, the reason it wasn't working is because I wasn't being consistent. So if you're going to start meditation and you want to reap the rewards, you've got to realize first and foremost, that it's something that you need to do consistently over a long period of time. Try and do it for 3 or 4 days a week initially, just for 5 or 6 minutes, and then build it up if you can. But really, if you meditate regularly, you are going to notice differences to how you feel and to the way that you respond.
Well, that's it, really. I don't know if I have much else to add. I think you've covered all bases. I think when we talk about meditation, it's an umbrella term for so much. I mean, meditation, mindfulness, it's all breath work. It kind of all comes under the same umbrella.
Totally.
What it's all doing, it's allowing you to tune inwards into your inner world, into that inner landscape, which so many of us have become so disconnected from. I will only ever recommend brands that I know, love, and use myself. And one of those is Ancient and Brave. Honestly, they've become part of my daily habits. The very first thing I do every morning is pour myself a big glass of water with their True Hydration in it. It feels like such a simple ritual, but it really sets me up for the day. And I know I'm properly rehydrating with their blend of electrolytes and minerals, especially before I exercise, which I always do in the morning. Then later on, when I make my coffee, I stir in their True Collagen powder into the coffee. Now, it blends in straight away, no fuss, there's no taste, and collagen is something we naturally lose as we age, but it's so important for our skin, joints, and overall vitality. Now, I'll be honest, Ancient and Brave may cost a little more than some of the tubs you'll spot on supermarket shelves, but the difference is you're getting the highest quality ingredients, sourced with integrity and tested to a higher standard, and absolutely no nasties added. That's why I trust them and why I think they're worth every penny. And because I want you to be able to try them out for yourself, I've got a special offer for you. As a listener of this podcast, you can get 20% off your very first order. All you need to do is click the link in the show notes and pop in the code POLLYW20 at checkout. They've got more than just collagen and hydration too. They've got creatine, they've got blends, supplements. So it's a perfect chance to explore their range and make the most of that 20% off.
Yeah.
Because life is busy and because we're not taught this stuff, it's not a priority when we're kids for someone to teach this. And I really do believe this is something which should be taught to all kids in schools, because our inner landscape is vital. You know, we all know that when we feel like we're really overwhelmed, we've got a million things running around our brain. And that's when sort of the anxiety starts to kick in, and the feelings of not being able to cope and like you're going to explode. But the thing is, we can actually take steps to really help with that. We're all quite obsessed with these days with our physical body, but actually mental health is now becoming such a big topic of conversation, quite rightly. And in order to help with that mental health, there are lots of things we can do. You know, get outside, fresh air, move your body, what you eat. But becoming aware of your inner world is a massive part of that, and it really does help. And I think why so many people become so disconnected from that is because as you said, it's a practice, and you don't get those immediate results straight away. You have to be patient with it. You have to be consistent with it. It's like all these things, unless you do it consistently, yes, you're probably going to think, oh, it's not doing anything. Even if you're doing it consistently, you're still not getting the feedback in the moment. Okay, it might feel great and you might experience really beautiful states of bliss, which I have, which you have, but not always. And sometimes it can be quite unpleasant, some of the experiences. You have to understand that it's over time. It's an awareness. You'll build every time you become aware of what is going on in your mind, of your thoughts, or when it's going away from that present moment, whatever you're choosing to focus on in that present moment. The moment your mind goes away and you bring it back, it's like doing a bicep curl. That is the training. That is the muscle that you are training, is that bringing it back to the focus of, it can be your breath. I sometimes really love to focus on this space between my eyes, like my third eye, this kind of space behind my eye, between my eyes. For me, that really helps.
I've never
Uh,
tried that.
yeah,
Oh,
I really love
really?
that, and I particularly love that. Like after I've done some sort of breath sequence, and then I do that, guide this in my inner space sessions, and then you have a moment of real calm and meditation. And actually, if you really bring your attention to this space between your eyebrows, sometimes I almost see a flashing kind of green light, and it just feels like it's an area to focus your awareness on.
Ooh,
For me, it works, but again, it's like finding what works. What
yeah.
is the thing that works for you? For some people, really focusing on just a gentle breath, breathing in and out through your nose helps. Sometimes this is why I love breathwork before, because what it does sometimes, it helps you to kind of almost expand your consciousness outwards, into a much greater space. And sometimes that can be helpful. But sometimes it literally is just noticing the thought, bringing your attention back, noticing the thought, bringing
Yeah.
your attention back. And it feels tireless, and it feels a little bit like, oh God, my mind's gone again. But actually, that's fine. That's great. You're just
Yeah.
doing another bicep curl for your mind. It's
Yeah.
absolutely what meditation is all about. And yes, for me as well, what it has allowed me to do is, in everyday life, I now have such a greater awareness of my state.
Yeah.
Not always, but most of the time, I can zone out or
Yeah.
zoom out of the current moment. If I'm really in a moment and something's not going my way, or I'm feeling really pissed off or feeling a bit anxious about something, I'm now able to zoom out and see it for what it is.
Mm.
I'm able to see a greater picture and reframe it in some way in my mind. Like, actually, do you know what? This isn't worth getting anxious about or worried about. And sort of almost change the lens through what I am seeing in that moment. And the more you can do that, obviously, then your reticular activating system in your brain is going to continually continuing being trained to see a more positive outlook, rather than the kind of the worry spirals or the anxiety spirals or the negative spirals. So it just everything starts to work in your favor a little bit more, and everything feels a little bit brighter. I'm just thinking about, like, in terms of a beginner guide, what else you can do to actually practice. But I think it's about making a commitment to yourself, first of all,
Yeah.
to try and find a spot in your day to fit it in. Often we kind of think, I'm too busy, I can't possibly do it, it's not really working. But the way to do it is to make a commitment to yourself and go, I am doing this. When I generally do it is after my shower in the morning, and I'll sit down on my bed, and I will do some sort of breathwork meditation then. Or for me, it has to be in the morning. If I don't do it in the morning,
Same.
it doesn't happen. But for some people, they love doing it before they go to bed. But again, it's about finding that moment in your day which works for you. But the morning I love, because you can then really set your intention for how you want the rest of the day to go. It's the energy that you bring into that day. If you're coming into that day with a sense of real calm, peacefulness, and some meditations might not be like that. As we said, some might be a bit frustrating. Oh my God, my mind is really freaking busy today. But that's fine. At least you have that awareness. That is what is happening. So yes, simple. Keep it simple. Keep it easy. And if you don't do it, no worries. Just come back to it. And if you miss it, just find 2 minutes if you're driving, just to be aware of it's just an awareness. It's just training that awareness constantly.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend meditating when you're driving.
Well, no, but it's not maybe not meditating. But I'm just kind of thinking, just you can think about how you're breathing when you're driving,
I know.
for example. And that's what I think we need to get away from. You don't always necessarily have to sit with your eyes closed, cross-legged, to meditate. You can go for a walk and start and do a meditation, a walking type meditation. And that literally, again, is just focusing. You can just focus on the feeling of your feet hitting the ground, which part of your feet is hitting the ground first. And you can just keep that as your focus. And then the moment your mind starts to pull away, bring it back, whatever it might be. So sometimes it doesn't have to be just sitting there, although sitting there is gorgeous and it takes you into other worlds.
And I think if
But
you're starting as well, I think it's better to start by sitting, because
yes,
do you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
I think ultimately, I mean, I know you can do a walking meditation or meditate with your eyes open, but I think ultimately, if you're just starting,
yes,
probably the best way is to actually sit. Do you know what I mean?
yes,
And two things actually that I just wanted to mention before I forget is, firstly, one thing that you can do when you're starting to meditate, because, you know, again, going back to what both you and I have said about focusing, bringing your focus back to something. One thing I often do in my morning routine club when we meditate is to get people to we do a body scan, and you can just do this yourself. So you can just sit down and, you know, close your eyes, and then you can literally just bring your attention to the top of your head, and then just work your way down your whole body, and just bring your awareness to all the different parts of your body. And again, this is a way of making sure that you are in the moment, that you are being mindful rather than your brain being off and away. So that's another way of meditating. That's another thing to focus on. All of, you know, so I just literally, when I'm guiding people in Cock-a-Doodle-Doo, I literally just, we start up at the top of the head and we work down, you know, kind of making sure that we're relaxing each body part, sort of thing. And the other thing that I wanted to say about meditation, which I think is one of the best things about it, is that, and it's an analogy that I use again in Cock-a-Doodle-Doo, is that one of the most brilliant things about meditation is that it makes you understand that you are not your thoughts. And I think so many of us, and I used to be like this, I used to think that I was my thoughts. So any thought that was going on in my brain, I was like totally attaching to and identifying. It didn't matter what it said. You know, I basically could not separate myself from my thoughts. And this is what is so bloody brilliant about meditation, is it allows you, or it makes it easier to separate yourself, that higher part of you, that conscious awareness, from your monkey mind. That, you know, thoughts are not facts. You are not your thoughts. And the analogy that I love to use, that I find really helpful, is to think of yourself and your thoughts like the ocean, right? So you are the ocean, and your thoughts are the waves at on the surface of the ocean. So basically, the vast majority of you, that higher part of you, that energetic part of you, is below the surface of the waves. It is still, it is calm, it is quiet, it is always, calm and still and quiet. Whereas the waves on the surface of the ocean, i.e. your monkey mind, your crazy thoughts, they're always changing, always moving. Sometimes they're really, really choppy. Sometimes they're a bit calmer. But if you can think of yourself as the ocean as opposed to the waves, and you can just look up and you can see the waves moving and chopping and changing and shifting, but you don't have to attach to them. You can just look at them, you can just watch them. And that is what is so fucking brilliant about meditation, is that it just makes it easier to understand that you are not your thought, and you do not have to attach to every thought that comes into your brain. You do not have to give energy to every thought that comes into your brain. It's just such a brilliant way of noticing and understanding that you are separate from that monkey mind, you know. And that is what I think is so brilliant about meditation. And I really love that analogy, because when you think about your minds like waves, and you think about, you know, your higher self, the true essence of you, that true conscious awareness, when you think of that as the ocean beneath the waves, then I find it makes it easier to separate myself from my thoughts. You know, when I remember I read what's the book by Michael Singer? Oh, bloody hell. Can you remember? Do you know the one I mean? His very, very famous book. Anyway, there's a book by Michael Singer. How annoying that I can't remember it. When I first read it, which was about 5 years ago, and he basically at the beginning of this book is talking about this concept that essentially you are the watcher of your thoughts. And I remember The Untethered Soul. Thank you. That's it. The Untethered Soul. And I remember when I first read it, I was like, what the actual fuck is he on about? This is such a load of bollocks. And I couldn't get my head around this concept. But when you meditate and when you practice separating yourself from your mind, I just think life gets better, life gets easier. You become more mindful, you become calmer. There's just so many reasons for starting meditation practice, not least, by the way, that it reduces anxiety. You know, I mean, you and I haven't gone into the kind of the many, many, many benefits, but reducing anxiety is one of them. And I think we can all afford to reduce our anxiety. And it's the same with breath work. Like, you know, meditation and breath work, they calm our nervous system down. And by intentionally calming our nervous system and bringing our nervous systems back into balance, you know, whether it be 3 times a week, 4 times a week, or 7 times a week, that is just so incredibly good for our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health. You know, it's just, oh, I love talking about meditation because I love it. And again, please know that if you stick with it, like now, I can sit in meditation for an hour and I can be completely freaking blissed out. And also what I love about it is the more you do it and the better, quote, better you get at it, the benefits are even greater. Like when I have a really intense meditation and I really drop into the moment. And by the way, it's incredible how you can meditate for an hour, and I swear to God, it feels like 15 minutes and it's an hour. And that just shows how, you know, time is an illusion because time just goes out the window. But when you get better at it, you can really feel like when I've done a really, really good meditation, quite a long one, I just feel amazing. And I can feel my body has completely calmed down. I literally can feel like my body kind of humming. It's the most amazing feeling, you know?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Just going back to what you were saying about one way of doing it is to really go through your, you know, tune into your body, what's going on in your body, sense what's happening in your body, you know, and that could include sensing your heartbeat. It can just, you know, just focusing on different parts of your body really helps to strengthen the signals between your brain and your body. Again, so many of us, as we said, are disconnected from what is going on in our body. And our body's communicating all the time with us through signaling, but we don't listen. So when we calm down enough in things like meditation, actually we start to notice what is actually happening in our body. We learn to listen to those signals. Our intuition gets stronger. And yes, our nervous system really does settle and we go into that really beautiful parasympathetic state. And the more that we can do that, the stronger that all becomes. And we are able to understand ourselves a lot better. And I think, you know, particularly a lot of midlife women, as their hormones are beginning to change, as they start to go through perimenopause and menopause, their body is signaling all the time. And because we don't listen a lot of the time, those signals just get stronger and stronger and stronger until literally they are screaming at us. And that is when, I mean, this was exactly what happened to me. My body was screaming at me going, you know, something has to change. Something you're doing is not working for you. So the more that we are in tune with our bodies, we then can start to listen. We can then start to make sure that how we are living our life is in alignment with actually what our body is needing in that moment. So yes, that's another way of looking at it as well. It's really working in together with our body, and yes, as you said, being a witness to our thoughts, being a witness to our internal world, and just letting a lot of that. I mean, some of the stuff which goes into your mind. Imagine if you believed every single thing which goes on through your mind. It's ridiculous. Some thoughts are
Yeah.
ridiculous, and we all know we can get into those spirals of worry, of ruminating. And actually, when you start to do this practice, we can stop those ruminations in their tracks before we spend too much time getting lost in them, and then getting letting the anxiety build. So there's so many benefits, but I think very simply to start off with, go and have a hunt. If you don't know, go and have a hunt and find a meditation that is good for you. Start with your breath. Lucy has her Cock-a-Doodle-Doo Club. I do the Inner Space. I do some, which is more breath focused, but I personally find doing breath work before meditation, I find it very difficult to drop straight into a meditation without the breath work, because I find it takes a lot longer. What the breath work does is that because if you're someone who is quite, he's got a very busy mind, and his nervous system is quite aroused already, what the breath work does, it gives you something to focus on to do. So meditation is really asking you to be, whereas the breath work is giving you something to do, but actually the doing of the breath work is also a really fantastic signal. It's like a remote control to your nervous system. It's a signal to your nervous system saying, okay, you can chill out now, you can calm, I'm going to switch you into that really relaxed, chilled out state. And then you can access the meditation part of it so much more easily. And you can start then to really, and it brings you, the breath work also is a great way to have something to focus on. And then after that, so I like to focus on the breath to start with, and then it's when I like to go and focus perhaps on this space in my forehead or out here somewhere, and you get those feelings of bliss. So that I would really recommend as well for people who find it difficult to do the breath first.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And in Cock-a-Doodle-Doo, we always start with breath work and then move into a meditation, because like you, I find it easier to start, and in fact, even if I just start, sometimes what I'll do is I'll literally do like 2 or 3 minutes of just deep breaths. Quite often I'll do 4 in, 8 out, so I'll extend the exhale, and sometimes that's all it takes, is just doing some deep breaths at the beginning for a few minutes, just really intentional breathing, and then just sort of going into a meditation. But yeah, I mean, both of us feel, I couldn't agree more that I find it easier to start with a little bit of breathing and then kind of drop into the meditation. It makes it easier for sure. Oh my God, it's 9:33.
Right. Amazing. Cool. All right. Well, hopefully that was helpful for anyone who is, considering starting a practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a joy.
Yes.
We'll be back next week.
You will. Yes. Absolutely.
All right. See you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.